Welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. So in the end of March, I did a video entitled Scotti-BYTE Incus Container Utility, where I created this utility that allows you to manage Incus containers, and basically it is now really I refer to it more as the Incus Dashboard. So this dashboard gives you things like the host name of the Incus host you're monitoring. It gives you the container names of the containers on that host, DNS names if you have them, and then it won't list DNS names for anything you don't have a DNS name for, the status, whether it's running or stopped, its IP address, its MAC address, the percentage of CPU it's using on the Incus host, as well as the utilized memory, and then the disk space utilization for the particular container. So what I've done differently now is I have deployed this over in the Scotti-BYTE Docker Hub account. And so today's video is going to be talking about deploying the Incus dashboard, but deploying it as a Docker container. Here we are over on my Incus server named demo-1, and we're going to go ahead and start by creating ourselves a container that is going to host this particular application. So I've done an Incus launch on Ubuntu 26.04. The name of the container is going to be Incus Dashboard. I'm using the default profile and the bridge profile as indicated in the Incus container step-by-step video. And then I'm doing boot.autostart equals to true. And since we have a Docker application nested inside of an Incus container, we are using the security.nesting equal to true. So now that our container's been created, let's go ahead and move inside of it with an Incus shell, Incus dashboard. And now, once you create a new container, or even if you fire up a new server, you should always take all of the updates and make sure that that operating system instance is up to date. So I do an apt update & apt upgrade -y, and that goes ahead and runs those updates. Now you may have noticed here that it says some sources can be modernized. And this is a new thing that we're noticing in Ubuntu 26.04. And basically what it does is it rewrites the repository sources into a new format. And specifically what it does is it's going to replace the .list files for repositories, and it's going to go ahead and put them into the new sources.list file. So I say go ahead and rewrite the sources, and it says fine, that's been done. So that's really pretty simple. So for this application, we have a few dependencies that we want to install, and those are going to be Nano Editor, net-tools, just to make ifconfig a command that makes it easier to see addresses of your adapters, the curl command, which we're going to need to install the Docker system, and then OpenSSH-server to let you connect into the thing remotely to manage it later. And then finally, Incus-client, because we're going to need the Incus client in order to do a installation or actually accessing your remote Incus servers, because this program can manage one or more Incus servers, and that's why we have that capability, which we will see here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and install Docker from the script on the Docker website. Now that Docker's been fully installed, I'm going to go ahead and add myself a user account with an add user Scott. And I'm going to provide Scott with a password and a verification password. And we'll go ahead and blow through the rest of the inputs here. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and put Scott into the Docker group and also into the sudo group. And that's really to keep you from having to use the sudo command every time you use Docker commands. Now with all that in place, let's go ahead and do an SU over to the Scott account, which will go ahead and log us into Scott and take us over to Scott's home folder. If we do a pwd, you can see we're in /home/Scott. Just to verify that the Incus client is installed properly, let's do an Incus remote list. And you can see here that we have the remote list, which is only the images file located up at linuxcontainers.org and also my local system. The way the Incus dashboard runs is you have to have a trust with any of the Incus servers you want to be able to manage. So in order to create that trust, I can do an SSH over to VMS Mist, which is in my DNS system, and I do an Incus config trust add Incus-dashboard. And of course, it says temporary failure in name resolution. Probably the quickest way around that is if we simply do a sudo nano on /etc/hosts, and we go ahead and provide my sudo password because we're editing a system file. If I simply enter 172.16.1.50, which is the address of my VMS Mist server, that will go ahead and take care of that DNS error. So then I can turn around and do this command SSH to VMS Mist, and it should work. It will go ahead and prompt me for the password over there. I enter the password and it will come back with a token. When you get that token, then you're going to want to go ahead and say Incus remote add VMS Mist. And when it does that, it's going to ask for that trust token. So I'm going to pick up that trust token, complete with the equal sign on the end of it. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to do a Shift-Control-V to paste it in here, and now we have that trust. So if I do an Incus remote list, we will now see that VMS Mist is in there. And moreover, I can do an Incus list VMS Mist : and it will go ahead and list all of the containers on VMS Mist. If you have more than one Incus server, you want to repeat the process to add additional trust so that you have more systems defined, and therefore the dashboard can monitor all of those systems. Next step we want to do is to create a folder called Incus-Dashboard in order to put our application in it. And then the next thing we want to do is cd inside of the Incus-Dashboard, and then we're going to edit a Docker Compose file. So I do a nano docker-compose.yml, and then once I do that, I want to go ahead and grab my Docker Compose file template that I have here. So all of these instructions are pretty much over on the Docker Hub, and I'll go ahead and put them in the show notes. But you'll see here basically it is pulling an image off of Docker Hub from the Scotti-BYTE account, and it's going and getting Incus-Dashboard, and it's getting the latest tag. The container is named Incus-Dashboard, and we have a restart unless stopped, and it's using port 80. And the reason is because all of the port numbers are available to us since we are inside of an Incus container. If you're executing this on another Docker host and port 80 is already used, change the port 80 to the left of the colon and make it a port number that you have available. The other thing you want to do here is you're going to want to change your username to whatever username that you created. Now I do a Control-O and Enter to write the file out, and a Control-X to exit the nano editor. And now all we have to do is a Docker Compose up-D, and that will go ahead and reach out to Docker Hub, and download the overlays and create the container and start the application. Once the application is started, you can do a Docker PS and see that it is up and running. And you can also do a Docker compose logs, and that should not be too spectacular. It should simply tell you that the dashboard is running on port 80 in my case. So now I go ahead and do an ifconfig command, and if I look here at ETH0, it says that the ETH0 device is 172.16.2.238. And that's the address of the Incus container, and it's also the address of where the Docker application is running. So let's go ahead and bring up a new tab in our web browser, paste that address in, and hit enter. And there the application is up and running, and you can see all of the containers on VMS Mist. I think that Incus Dashboard implemented in a Docker container may be quite a bit easier for users to deploy. So take a look at it and go out and try it on your system. Anyway, that's it for today. Please subscribe and like to the channel, and don't forget to hit your notification bell, and we'll see you next time.